Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, we're going to touch a subject. Miss Robin and I have been working with some organizations, and we've seen a common thread starting to run through them that's so dangerous in our society today. Today's topic, read it for us, Miss Robin.
Death knells of organizations. Who, what, where, when, and why they decide to close the doors and throw away the key. And let me set this up by saying that we live in Florida off US 19. If you've ever been here, you're probably pretty familiar with that 6-lane highway. And we drove 50 miles yesterday up 19 in the church bus and noticed how many businesses had closed and how many things like stores, chains of stores are closed, and how many, especially Harbor Freight sales, they all had going out of business sales signs on them.
Everything must go.
And I kind of, when I was watching coming back, that the Toys R Us are all closing, the Kmart's are closing, and they've been in trouble for a long time. Sears Kmart has been really struggling. So then we think about the number of churches that are closing, because they can't afford to keep the doors open. We know a couple in our area have closed because the roof is in such bad shape, it's not safe to be in the building, and they can't afford to fix it. Mm-hmm. How many clubs we've been involved in, or business organizations and things that have just closed over the past few years because of the same reasons, I think. I think the thread that caused all this runs through everything. But again, even I was thinking about scout troops over the years that had to close their doors. And how did that happen, and why did it happen?
Well, we've seen Girl Scout troops, Boy Scout troops, youth groups all around. We've seen Rotaries and Kiwanis and
all of those organizations, business organizations. We've been involved with a lot of local business organizations that kind of parallel a BNI or an MPI, but a couple different things that make them unique.
They just start going away.
And they're disappearing. They're just disappearing.
So
why?
So this common thread, though, that what we're seeing is, okay, it really just is disturbing because they've really come to the point where they just throw away the key. I mean,
it's just time.
They just close up the door. So you have to start asking the questions. Did they forget to pay attention to the evolving needs, wants, shopping practices,
consistently,
current events?
Right.
I mean, did they just always do things the way they've always done them, and so after 50 years they just dead?
Yeah, some of them are probably lucky they stayed in business that long. And the most shocking moments after the first of the year when Toys R Us announced they were closing all the stores, and I thought, wow, where are parents going to go buy toys? Well, obviously they're closing because parents aren't buying toys at Toys R Us. They're buying them everywhere else. They're buying them everywhere.
Well, after the first of the year, they announced that they were going to close some stores. Yeah. And then last week it was, we're going to go wall.
And the original plan was to close everything for 4 or 5 years, see how things had evolved. They figured they'd evolve back where people wanted to see, touch, and feel the toy before they just bought it online or whatever. And they would come back in a different model. Well, my question is, why didn't they notice that 5 or 10 years ago when that really started to jump and change their model then?
Well, do you think it's because when you're making money, when things are going well,
right,
that you don't look down the road or you don't look around you?
Correct. And we know that that's the time where you really need to take a look. I mean, it's fun, celebrate that, but you need to, you probably need to take a look to make sure you stay there.
So there's this question you have written here. I have to really, I'm going to follow up on it. It says, should we blame someone or should we just let them go? And I guess what I'm asking is that, is there a time when the club, the organization, the company, the group has just outlived its purpose and usefulness?
I don't think that's the case in most cases.
Okay.
I think the case is they've been floating through life for a few years, doing what they've always done, the way they've always done it, when they've always done it, and they haven't possibly, in a lot of organizations, added new members. And if they did add new members, they didn't give the new members a chance to share their ideas for going forward. and they're just sort of in a whirlpool.
So that kind of goes back to the leadership model.
Yeah, it's a leadership model.
If we're not continually bringing more leaders in, building more leaders, if we're not and I think that also goes back to legacy.
Right. Lead.
I look at legacy as I'm not going to always be able to do the job I'm doing. I'm not going to be always be able to be part of the organization I'm a part of. Who am I bringing up behind me? Who am I teaching? Who am I learning? Who am I mentoring?
Right, and that person doesn't have to be a little clone of you.
No, I know.
It needs to be a little different because things have to change.
Well, I think that's the crazy part about this. We keep looking at not cloning, but
reproducing ourselves.
What I see the groups that are kind of diminishing and going away is they want all the people in the group to be like them, think like they do, talk like they do, dress like they do. And when I was in scouting, I thought, I'd be quite honest with you, I thought it was good that we all dress the same way.
But no, they're dressing the same way or dressing similarly says a lot.
I thought it was a great way to just make everybody equal or level the game.
Right. And that was the purpose.
And it really disturbs me now when everybody comes in part uniform and part blue jeans and part this and it's just all haphazard. And so there's no respect.
And I think that's one of the things that in that organization they have not identified.
But I think it's this respect thing. There's this. I'm really struggling with the respect, even in churches today. There's no respect. Look, I like to go casual like everybody else once in a while and things. But I think there's certain times you go to a wedding, you should dress properly. You know, that's coat and tie for men and a dress for a lady. Okay, or you know, I don't get it. You go to a business meeting. And people come in in flip-flops and shorts that are raggedy-ed, and they're not dressed appropriately for their female attire. That's just lack of respect for themselves and the people around them. And I think that's a killer. I'm sorry. I think it's a killer.
I think it's a killer. Someone mentioned to me yesterday that they had visited a church where nobody got dressed up. And I said, oh, that's, you know, and she says, no, you don't understand. Nobody gets dressed to go to church, and it just something's missing. And I think it's the respect and the honor to where you're going that you would dress still appropriately. I mean, in parts of the country, you still wouldn't go into a restaurant at night without a jacket and tie. They wouldn't let you in.
My grandfather raised me to understand that appropriate dress says a lot about you. Okay, now maybe I'm just old, but I think when you are not appropriate, I think that's what makes these groups die quickly.
Right, there's no respect.
Okay.
Right down the line, there's no respect.
And I think that's one of them. The part with the Harbor Freight or Toys R Us, I just don't think they stayed on top of what was happening in the world.
I think that's part, and I think it's broader than that. They didn't pay attention to their market where they are. How many people?
Well, how many stores they have?
How many other stores?
I mean, my goodness, Harbor Freight, just in our little area, there's 10 stores.
And I thought, okay, we actually shop at 3 or 4 of them.
I do.
Because sometimes you couldn't find what you want. Well, we bought those chairs, and we had to go to 3 to get the chairs because they didn't have them at the other 2.
Well, they ran out.
They had run out. They were lawn chairs, folding canvasy lawn chairs. And we wanted those specific chairs for a specific reason, like they're comfortable. And we had to go to 3 stores.
They fit my camper. Okay.
They fit the camper really well. So that was one point. But, you know, we could have gone, you know, one of those stores could have been eliminated. Maybe the other 2 would have done better. I don't know.
But now they're all closing.
They're all closing, which leaves empty retail space all over the place. But look at Kmart. Kmart probably felt when Walmart moved in across the country, and we were one of the last areas to have a Walmart because we had so many people here. They were mostly for to accommodate rural areas, and we're pretty densely populated. So Walmart came in, and they could have been a nice balance to Kmart. Right. And I don't know what Kmart did in the long run, but let me tell you, it's a lot nicer to shop at a Walmart than it was to shop at a Kmart. So where am I going to go shopping?
But I think we're still looking at this whole piece is, did they outlive their usefulness?
Or did they not pay attention?
Did they not pay attention or what? The churches that I see fail, even our area where we live, we're very densely populated here in Pinellas County. there's a church within a quarter mile of any way you turn.
Oh yeah, easy.
Okay, there's that many, and because there's that many, there's lots of choices. And when there's lots of choices, it's not a bad thing. But I don't know if you can serve that many different little pieces all the time.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about a couple of years ago about the churches was they overlap on their missions and ministries.
And that's huge.
And that's huge. So if the church down the street is having success with a specific ministry, then why would you duplicate that ministry? Do something else. And I think
know.
those are the things that I feel they still are not looking at.
So, gosh, I hate to ask this question. I really do. I really hate to ask this question. Could the organization be saved or revived? And do revivals, do they work in the long run or just temporary?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either, but I still think it's some organizations that just outlive their usefulful-ness.
Well, again,
I mean, the networking groups, I'm going to tell you,
Yeah.
they've just about outdone their usefulness because they've become a place for people who are starting their own companies, but they're people who don't know what it means to start their own company.
Yeah, they don't know what they don't know.
You know, and they go to these free advice places to get free advice, and when you get free advice, it's worth exactly free.
Sometimes it's worth exactly what you pay for it.
So that's the danger zone. And I just see them floundering. It just disturbs me so much.
Well, in that case, we know a couple of the ones that we were in that sort of are dissolving.
Fizzle.
Okay, the fizzle's flown.
So maybe they just need to let go. They really shouldn't be revived.
Or they should have paid attention to what people were telling them along the way, that things needed to alter the way they were doing, or they need to have, a lot of them have minimum expectations from the membership. The first ones we were in 15, 20 years ago, you were expected as a member to do certain things and fulfill certain things. And one of the big ones was referrals.
But I just was asked on a board of a corporation, and I walked into the first meeting and said, do I get some expectations? What do you expect me to do? Do I need to do like most boards, pay some money and or be involved? And they went, oh, we've never thought of that. And I said, and so how are you doing? Well, we're struggling. We can't seem to get people to join, and we can't seem to get people to come. And I said, oh, you're struggling.
Did you ask them why? Or they come once and they'll come back. They come twice and they'll come back.
So I went, well, maybe you just need to go away.
There's always, in a lot of these organizations, the rule of thirds. Where
could the organization be saved or revived? But then you have to ask the question, is this someplace I want to put my time and effort into?
And like I was alluding to, the rule of thirds, where we found out there was a third of the people in any organization that stay forever and ever.
Yeah.
There's a third of the people that come, use it for a couple months, and they know they've gotten all the business they're going to get out of it, or they've done everything they can do, or they can't fight the third that never goes away, and they go away. And then there's a third that stays for medium length of time until something happens.
They do their best to try to take and fit in whatnot.
And I think that's across the board.
How do you know whether or when to decide to fish or cut bait?
It's one of my favorite terms, fish or cut bait, fish or cut bait.
You've got here, set a time frame, have a list, if then mile markers. Tell me about this if then mile markers, because I use them all the time and you do too, but I'm not so sure everybody out there understands that.
They're just ways to gauge if you're moving forward or not. And
where do you put these if then mile markers?
I would put them in my journal.
In your journal?
Yeah, if you were looking to whether you should stay or leave an organization. And we've been through this subconsciously more than consciously.
I'm pretty conscious about it nowadays.
If I'm in a business organization that's referral based and I don't get a referral that actually turns into an exchange of dollars for a product within a certain length of time, then I obviously don't need to be spending my time there.
Exactly.
It's costing me money to make no money.
Exactly.
So then you would leave.
But you do need to spend a certain amount of time to get people to know you and those kind of things.
You need to give it a chance.
Okay.
And you need to be intentional about talking with people about their business and everything else. The same thing with a civic club or any organization. Am I effective here? Is it good use of my time?
And
I think that's what am I feeding it?
I think that's well. That's a great question right there. Is it feeding you? Is it you feeding it?
Right. Am I the consumer or
because
the
I think that is one of the mile markers.
Yeah, it's a marker.
Okay.
So if you're looking to leave an organization, you would probably make a list of things that you would expect, your expectations out of the organization. And as they hit those, you might want to check them off. I know you're disagreeing. You might want to check them off, but it's a way to be consciously evaluating your time and your energy.
I am a huge person who asks what the expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
I like to know what's expected of me within the organization. I also know what the organization, is going to do for me. I think it has to be a two-way street. But I think it's more than that. I think that when these organizations start to close down, that the more that we're looking at them, that they're having some same little situations. And one is they're doing the same thing the same way for a long time and not building leadership, not bringing more people, not encouraging people. And leaders, here's what happens when you're doing it all. When you're doing it all and somebody comes into the organization and it's great, let's have, but they sit down and they don't have a job, they don't have anything to feel connected, and they see the old leadership doing all the jobs, and the new person's never asked to be involved or get do anything. What you're sending a silent message to them that they're not good enough,
or they don't need you.
We don't need you. It's nice to have your money.
Well, we like your money, but we don't need you.
So, I think that's one of the death markers.
Right. And the other part of this is when people do leave, do you do an exit interview? We just hit this somewhere with churches, and people leave the church. Why are they leaving?
It's a huge piece.
Again, maybe there should be an entrance interview where they want to join the church, and you say, why do you want to join this church, and what are your expectations from us, and what should our expectations from you be, and how does this work out as a long-term relationship?
And I do believe that, I hate to go backwards sometimes, but in the past that was part of the entrance into an organization. I remember There was one organization that I had to sit with the leadership group and explain to them why I wanted to join, why I wanted to be a member, but when I left, they could have cared less.
Well, there was not one of those groups where they never actually, when they were doing volunteer work, the list came by, it was always filled with the same old people doing the same old volunteer stuff.
I was never asked to do anything.
And you were in trouble for that.
Be gone with anything. All they wanted was my money.
You wanted your money.
And I didn't stay very long, just so you know.
And we don't give money anymore either.
I do not.
Just so you know. Yeah.
I do not.
We don't put money where we're not appreciated.
So you have a note here. And it says, what is the long-term financial plan?
Well, as I was thinking through this organization shutting down, there's finances involved. And like you said,
it's always budget.
There's always some money. There's always a budget. So what is the plan for what the organization closes for whatever reason? I know, let's use our church because I have a physical building, a foundation, and a trust. And that combined property is probably worth conservatively around $6 million.
A little bit more.
I was being conservative. Oh, I forgot we had the extra part. Okay, so maybe it's $7 million between what they have in the trust and the foundation.
Just about 10.
Oh, okay. All right, that's a bunch of money. $10 million is a crock of funds. So if the church, which is dwindling, couldn't afford to keep the building open, and they were going to close the church and have all that property that they had to sell plus the foundation and the trust, how is that money going to be distributed? Well, do they have a plan?
In each company, in each corporation, and even every family.
Every family. This applies to families, so we're going to get there.
And I'm really saying, your long-term financial plan, you always have to have an exit strategy.
Right.
We're getting a few years on us now, and we're looking at our exit strategy of when's it time to sell the house and move someplace else, and do those things. That's an exit strategy. It's also a budget and financial strategy.
Yeah, you have to have strategies where it kicks you in the butt.
It includes your materials, and your buildings, and your people, and your finances, and all the different parts and pieces of it. But in organizations that we've seen flounder, it doesn't seem like they really have people looking at their finances or having a budget. It really doesn't look like they're looking at their people. Well, when a big store closes down, like Toys R Us, all the number of stores across the U.S., and when they close down, that's a number of people without jobs.
Jobs.
Did they even consider that? Did they go to the people and say, hey, look, we're having trouble. We need to
Go find a
restructure.
job. Yeah.
We need to restructure. You might need to take and
Yeah,
reevaluate
look out.
your plan. How can we help you move on?
Yeah, because when you multiply that by the Kmart's and the Toys R Us and all the Harbor Freights, that's a lot of people.
A lot of people
that need a job.
But even when Verizon, bought General Telephone,
okay,
and there was a huge amount of us who were asked to leave, there was no plan.
There was no plan.
There was no plan. And so when these organizations, clubs, churches, whatever, if there's no plan, here's what happens. Here's what happens. The people all leave with a bad taste in their mouth. And when they tell the story,
you lose.
That story is not a very good one. Mm-hmm. So that corporation is always going to struggle with that bad story.
They're going to have Verizon's probably still fighting that. I mean, they've changed their whole business structure dramatically, but they might still be fighting that. Okay.
I'm going to be quiet.
We know nothing.
All right.
Okay.
Now Robin really put some good thought into this, and she wrote down keeping the organization vital and important. And these are some ways that
there's an upside
that we're going to. Well, Robin and I always try to take and give the positive side. We always try to give you a way to put it back into perspective. So if you saw yourself, or you saw your company, you saw your church in that top piece, we always try to give you some ways to look at it differently and kind of, I won't say resurrect it, but I'm going to say
revive it.
Revive it.
But
give it some CPR.
Give us some options whether you really need to close or not. I'm thinking, especially in the Kmart venue, we have been hearing for years how their gross sales are slipping and everything else. So they've been on a downward plane for a long time. So we didn't know if there was, in that case, I don't know if there was nothing to revive, or they were taking the wrong strategies to revive, or what their deal was. But it can happen to anybody anytime.
So what are these aspects needed to be reviewed, evaluated?
We know that when we got paid every other week on a
that's a long time ago.
We knew every 2 weeks that money was coming in, and occasionally it went up, but not very often. That we had to evaluate every 2 weeks. We had to pay bills.
Right.
We have to buy food.
There were some standards.
There were some standards.
Okay.
We knew periodically
exactly what those were going to be, but the food kind of moved in and out.
And the food sometimes was one thing that was flexible.
Right.
So you bought more on sale and stored it and hoped you didn't have to run completely out sometimes. But also part of that was we had to have money put away for things like car insurance.
Hot water heater.
No hot water heater, no appliances, they do break.
Yeah.
And things like that. So, but you need to plan those things, and that is one of the things that especially churches do not plan on. They never think everything's going to break or wear out. And believe us,
folks, we understand where you come from. We believe God will provide. There's no doubt about it.
But
I believe God really wants you to be good steward.
Yeah, and
a good steward of what He provides you, which means planning.
I know right now in our area there are 3 churches that need roofs, and they didn't plan on it. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. But they did not plan on it. Okay, then there's that monthly element.
Okay.
So monthly. So if you are in a business, maybe you need to look at your gross and net income. I wouldn't look at that weekly, but monthly over a month. How does that looking? What do you need to do different? Do you need to stop spending? Do you need to stop going to those networking groups where it costs you money and you're not making any?
What's our sales? What's our marketing? What's all those pieces?
What's the real?
And there's really easy programs nowadays to take and do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we have to do 14 spreadsheets like we had to do in the past.
I'm still using Excel.
Okay.
It's easy, user friendly.
So whatever you use, make sure you look at it. But I want to give you a hint here though. When you're looking at it, make sure you share the results with everyone. Don't make this a secret to the top leadership people, because here's what happens when secrets like that are kept by the top leadership. The people out in the pews or out in the company, they make up their own stories.
That's right.
They make up those own stories long enough they become real.
Okay, but you also need to do a quarter review.
Sure.
We get those financial things from different companies, quarterly.
And we're one of those weird people that read them, so.
Or listen to them or whatever. We kind of, sort of, not. Okay, anyway. And then there's annually. And you need to have an annual thing. And I just read this from a John Maxwell book that he does his annual plan between December 26th
Yep.
and 31st every year, because that's kind of for most of us, kind of an off dead week.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot going on. And you have time to really process that information.
I think you have time to do some inner looking.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's when I look through all the pages. I my day runner for the year, and I collect names, I collect places, and all sorts of things out of there.
And maybe you make, because that's a whole year window, not just the weekly, monthly, or quarterly. It's a whole year window, and you can really make some maybe some better decisions going forward. And you need to do that.
Okay.
People need to do
So
that.
that monthly, quarterly, annually. What's this 5-year plan?
Well, that's next, and you jumped ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what I want to do is, since you've been looking at things weekly and monthly and quarterly and annually, do you have a real plan in place? Is there an effective plan that you are using for your weekly income and expenses, your monthlies, your quarterlies, your annuals? And honestly, especially in an organization, not so much a family, but an organization, do you have a 5-year plan? Are you looking 5 years down the road? Because I'm going to tell you something. If you're not looking 5 years down the road in your organization, it won't be there in 5 years. Statistically, it will not be there. It'll be gone.
But I think that's huge.
And some people just really can't conceptualize 5 years.
And think about this. When you get to be like we are, we're a little bit older nowadays. That 5 years, I'm starting to really look at it seriously.
5 years.
I'm really planning that 5 year. I've been starting to clean out the attic because I'm not supposed to be up on the ladder anymore. I've been getting other things done. I'm really starting to really think about that more and what that plan means.
Well, the other thing is when you get, like I said, we're in our mid-60s. Oh my goodness. I have to admit that publicly. I'm in my mid-60s now, and I think if you look at people that are 5 years older than you, and look at their physical and mental and financial places and go, do I want to be there or do I want to be somewhere else?
Yeah, some of them are really cool, but some of them aren't,
Yeah.
It's funny, most people we hang around with are at least 10 years older than we are, and they're almost as active as we are. So
yeah, that's not I think okay. Yeah. So again, we need to apply this plan to first to yourself.
I think to yourself, and then to your
family, then to your home, and then to your other organizations as they spread out.
And I think sharing this information with the organizations,
I
think that's why Robin and I do what we do. Is we're encouraging you to share it with the organizations. I've pared back all my organizations now except for one, and that one is the one who didn't ask me. They don't know what their expectations are, so I'm going to try to do my best to help them, because it's a good organization, but it is in all world is dead. It just needs. Can it be revived? Can it be re-energized?
Okay, if you're looking for help in any of this, there's some really good books out there.
There are.
I read one a few years ago on how to revive your church with some simple steps. Simple things. It had a card every week that everybody filled out through in the offering plate, had what your prayer concerns were, whether you liked the sermon. It didn't ask the same questions every week. It was different questions, so you could get different bits of information. Our church decided not to do that, and the membership is down like 20% maybe.
Look, if you really, there's some really good books out there, and if you're really interested, you can give us a call here at Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development, and we'll be glad to take and put you on that path. Because
the sooner you notice that things are what's the word we need? The death knell.
You need to notice, but you need to admit.
It doesn't have to be
you don't. It doesn't have to get all the way to the end, and you're trying to perform CPR.
It didn't work.
Okay. If you can look at it and admit what's happening and get started before then, that's the key. That's what we're encouraging you to do.
Right. I started at 0 and you can start at 25, whatever miles per hour. Okay.
I'd rather start.
Not that I can drive that, but Hey.
I'd like to start a lot faster than that.
Yeah.
And I know you drive faster than that.
Oh yeah, so I can't do 25. So anyway, pay attention to what's going on in your organizations. Understand that these things are happening. You may or may not be aware, depending on how involved you are in the orchestration. Do your mile markers.
All right.
It's our word of the year.
There it is, mile markers. On behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and Robin Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, we want to say thank you for being a part of today's program. Our hope is that you've received a nugget of wisdom or guidance that will help you build your leadership ability. Now, if you have any questions, give us a call, 727-422-1833. Send me an email, dick@leadershipwrangler.com. Go to our website, set your very own time, www.leadershipwrangler.com. And when you're looking for that next wonderful speakers to come in and talk to your group about leadership and accountability, make sure you give us a call here at Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development, 727-422-1833. And until next time, this is DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.